Here at Psych with Mike, we are committed to delivering the best, clinically sound psychology information that we possibly can to our audience. Brett and I have decades of clinical experience as well as educational experience, and we want to make sure that we're able to deliver that to the audience and that always be free. So after 2 years, to be able to take the show to the next level, we are going to open ourselves up to advertising. But before that can happen, we need everybody who hears this message to follow the link that is on the show notes on the podcast page or is on the show notes in the YouTube. Click on that link and fill out a survey that is literally 10 seconds long, so it won't take you more than 10 seconds. Do it right now. I'll wait. Okay, so see, that was really fast and really easy, and it's going to help us to be able to attract advertisers to the show and be able to take the show to the next level. Thanks for listening, and we hope that you enjoy Psych with Mike. Hello, everybody. This is Dr. Michael Mahan. I am here with my friend and colleague, Brett Newcomb.
Good morning.
Good morning. Welcome into the Psych with Mike Library. How are you today?
I'm excellent.
Yeah. So it's a really, really nice day in the neighborhood today.
It is, Mr. Rogers. Thank you.
The weather is very nice.
You even took your sweater off.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. It's a beautiful day.
Took my sweater off when I changed my shoes.
Should be mine.
He always changed his shoes.
Yeah, and his sweater.
Because he had inside, he took off his sport coat and put a sweater on. Because apparently when you're in the house, you wear a sweater, and when you go outside, you wear a sport coat. But he had inside shoes and outside shoes.
And that way his house was cleaner than most of our houses.
I would imagine that's exactly what happened, yes.
Yeah. I have a number of friends that ask you to take your shoes off when you come in their house.
Don't, but the first time, because then after that you know.
Right, well, yeah. Hopefully.
Yeah. That's right.
Some of us are slow learners.
Yeah. So we're getting to the time of year. It's when, as we're recording this, early September, and you and your wife spend a lot of your time nowadays camping. Yep. And this is the time of year when I would imagine
I love fall camping.
That is optimal.
Yeah, it's very nice.
Yeah. So you guys planning any big camping?
Yes, actually, we have 2 or 3 trips planned.
Yeah. You don't want to talk about destinations or anything?
No,
okay.
I don't want thousands of people to show up and claim the spot.
Yeah, that would be horrible.
I'm sure that would be the case.
They would descend on whatever state park you're planning to go to.
And they'd bring their weapons.
Yeah. So we've talked about this and recently that I have started doing some TikTok videos to hopefully be inspirational. And one of the videos that I did has been almost 60,000 viewed, almost 60,000 times, which is remarkable to me. But the topic of that video, it wasn't of all the I've done, now a couple dozen of these things, and of all the ones that I've done, this was not the video that I thought would get the most attention, but it did, and so I wanted to talk about that on the pod. And the subject of that video was rumination or persification. So for people who aren't familiar with those terms, rumination or persification is the tendency for the human brain to feed thoughts back on itself.
I have to think about that.
Okay. You acted like you had something profound, but you don't have to chime in. My theory of psychology is that rumination is the foundation for how we create and experience anxiety. So anxiety is the result of cognitive dissonance, the inability for the human brain to comfortably hold two conflicting thoughts. That's the definition of cognitive dissonance. So when you have two conflicting thoughts in your brain, the rubbing up against each other of those thoughts, the friction of that is what creates the energy that we experience as anxiety. You with me so far?
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm tracking.
And so when we have in our biology 4 primary emotions: glad, mad, sad, and scared, which is the exact same primary emotional reality of a dog. Because you've seen a dog get glad, right?
Yeah.
You've seen a dog get mad.
Yeah.
You've seen a dog get scared.
Yeah.
You've seen a dog get sad.
Yeah.
Yeah. So dogs have the same emotional life as humans, but they don't have a cortex. They don't ruminate. So they experience an emotion and then let it go.
That's why they're always happy to see you.
Yeah.
Even if you're mean to them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because they don't ruminate.
Yeah.
So they don't buy assault rifles and hide behind the furniture for you to come home at night.
So as you're talking, the reason I haven't said anything yet, I'm thinking of a couple of different strains of thought directions. One is when you are experiencing a lot of anxiety about something, whatever the originating cause of that anxiety is, you tend to find thoughts stuck in your head, like fragments of a commercial jingle that you've heard. You just repeat over and over in your head like 5,000 times in a day, and you keep saying to yourself, "Stop it! I don't want to hear that." And then you're singing it again in your head, even if somebody's talking to you.
Right.
I mean, it's just playing constantly.
And people say all the time, "Oh, thanks a lot. I've got that song stuck in my head."
Yeah. Or you listen to an actual song and you hear the song play, sometimes for days on end, and that's usually, and I understand that as an indication of some anxiety that's underlying your awareness. You may or may not be conscious of it, but it's causing your brain to do that as a way to not focus on or immediately experience the anxiety. The other thing that I think about is when I remember for myself when I do something, say something socially that's really inappropriate, even if the people that I'm around don't overreact to that, I go back and play that over and over and over in very self-critical ways. You idiot, you said this, you know better than that. Or you said something hurtful to somebody that you didn't necessarily intend to hurt them with, but I just keep ruminating that I've really committed this faux pas, and now I need to make up for that in some way so that I don't leave damage behind. And the people that I'm with may not have even acknowledged it. It may not have registered in their consciousness. It's not about them. It's about me. And I find, and I'm curious, would you classify that also as a form of rumination?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. Anytime you are feeding a repetitive thought back on itself, it's rumination, whether it's positive or negative.
Okay.
And that's my whole
that's
message.
where I was trying to get to.
Yeah. And that's my whole message to people is that you can ruminate positively. And that's what, so the whole foundation of cognitive behavior therapy, which is changing the automatic thoughts that play in your brain, is just a form of rumination or a form of conditioning that is based on rumination. So our experience of whether or not we feel good or feel bad as a rule, just as a baseline, is going to be based on the extent to which we condition ourselves positively or negatively with our ruminative thoughts. We can't eliminate rumination as human beings. It would be impossible to do. It's not even a goal that should be pursued. What we should do is, or should, and we're saying should when we say we should never say should. But what would be the optimal goal for humans would be to change the rumination to a positive rather than a negative.
If you can.
If you can.
I'm haunted still by something that I did when I was 20 years old. I mean, 53 years ago in college. I was in the student senate, and the football coach of the college, his wife had cancer and was dying. And the Senate decided to take up a collection around campus to help provide for her care as she died. And so we were all supposed to go out and get people to donate money. And I was after that meeting in the student post office, and I encountered a group of students, and I was trying to tell them, hey, we're trying to do this thing for the coach, and poor guy and his wife, poor gal, and this is going on and this is going on. And they were all frozen as I faced them. And I thought they were mesmerized by what I was saying. And I was saying it so powerfully and so strongly, so well, that they were just going to reach in their pocket and come up with a lot of money. But finally it intruded on my consciousness that they were frozen because something was behind me. And I turned around, and she was standing there with tears rolling down her face, listening to me say these things. And it still haunts me at times.
But nothing you said was bad.
But she came face to face with the conversation and the rawness of the pain of that for her loss and her reality in her life. I just feel responsible for hurting her in that way, in that moment. And it was totally unaware and unintentional, but I was so lost in myself trying to do something.
Did she express to you that she was hurt by what you said?
No, she was just crying.
And
I saw her.
But you don't think that was appropriate?
I don't know. I cannot get it out of my head.
I think that her crying was the appropriate response to the life experience that she was having at the time, and I think that
intellectually, I don't disagree with you.
She may have herself been mesmerized by the beauty of your delivery.
Well, I don't know, Michael. I just know that there are times when that sort of behavior.
Okay, but we this is a trope in movies, whether it's science fiction or It's a Wonderful Life or whatever. But the idea of being able to witness your own eulogy.
Yeah.
So if that was her experience, and her experience was that was so beautiful and so articulately delivered from a person that barely even knew her, it may have been profoundly transformative for her in a positive way.
I don't know. Judgmentally say to myself, I wasn't honoring her, I was selling.
But you accept that the version of reality that I am promoting is theoretically possible.
Yes, I accept
so
that.
It could be, you could choose to believe that as easily as what you've been living with for the past 23 years.
Except that there are other examples from my life where I've done similar things, where I've gotten in situations verbally that I would pay money to have never gotten into.
And I'm not saying
didn't see it coming.
Right. I'm not saying that none of us have ever made a faux pas or even made a serious mistake. I mean, obviously, I know that I have made very serious mistakes in my life. Yeah. But I think that if you are then remorseful and make true amends, not just apologize, that's all you can do. But it is the rumination.
Well, yes, so you can let go of that unless you ruminate.
Right.
So how does one not ruminate? When you get caught in one of these loops, you hear the music, or you remember the awkward, embarrassing, painful thing, how do you stop that?
Right. So
because you can help me here. I've been carrying this for 53 years.
So my proposition of this is that you have to find, so distraction is one of the best ways of getting yourself out of rumination.
Yeah.
But you have to find something that is equal or greater in emotional intensity to the invasive thought.
So is depression a form of rumination?
No, depression could be biological. So that's one of the distinctions that I make, is that rumination is a natural process of you having a cortex.
Okay.
And so you can't not ruminate. That's what I'm saying. We can't not ruminate. What we want to do is use rumination to our benefit rather than our detriment. So we want to try and ruminate positively rather than negatively.
Okay.
But depression, because that could be a biological miswiring or misfunctioning of the brain, that's a different process.
So if I challenge myself to stop hearing the song that I heard in the radio this morning that I'm ruminating about because I'm under a lot of stress. If I challenge myself to list all 45 presidents of the United States in order,
yes,
and I get absorbed in doing that,
right,
that's a positive rumination,
right,
that's taking away the underlying anxiety of the moment at any rate.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so what I tell people in therapy is, when you have an invasive rumination and you say, okay, I want to get this out of my head, and then you have to sit down and think, okay, well, what could I think about that would be just as emotionally powerful? Then you're never going to be able to accomplish this task.
Right.
So what I encourage people to do is try and find something that is so emotionally powerful for them that it can knock them out of 99% of their ruminations.
to find it and carry around in their pocket.
Yeah.
Like always go to this.
Right. And so
does it have to be emotionally powerful, or just intellectually focused? Like if you do your times tables, what are your 7 times?
well, actually, so you can't have your brain, because of the hierarchical structure of the brain.
Right.
You can't do 2 things simultaneously. So logical thought, you can't do logical figuring if you are also having an emotion. But the brain is always going to do the most basic function first. So it's always going to cause the autonomic nervous system to work first. And then emotions are the next level of the brain. And then cognitive or rational thought is the top. But if you can get yourself into that rational kind of place where you're doing your times tables, you can't also be involved in ruminating on an emotional experience.
So if you, in school, when I was in school many, many years ago, we did a lot of memorization work. We had to do recitations. And I still remember some of the things that I had to memorize then, again, 55 years ago. Like the first paragraph of the Declaration of the Independence. Can you recite it? So if I catch myself ruminating, if I can go to that recitation and recite it, while I'm doing that, I'm not going to hear the song.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. And so for me, what I have always used, what my go-to is that when Star Wars came out in 1977, I was 13 years old. So I went to see this movie that had been, we saw some trailers for it, but this was before, people have to understand, this was before anybody knew what Star Wars was, right? So like Star Trek had been out, and people knew what Star Trek was. Nobody knew what Star Wars was. So we went to the movie not knowing what we were going to go see. And when Luke has had his fight with his Uncle Owen, and he goes out, this is before R2-D2 runs away. Stay with me.
I'm lost already.
And he goes out onto the surface of Tatooine, and the twin suns are setting. The music that's playing in the background is Luke's theme. That's my favorite part of Star Wars.
It's like Laura's theme in Dr. Zhivago.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that is, and that is...
It's cold in wintertime in Russia, and the train is...
I can remember being 13 years old in May, sitting in a dark movie theater with a couple of friends and watching this and being transformed by it. And emotionally, when I think of that piece of music, I feel like I'm 13 years old again, sitting in that movie theater. That's extremely emotionally powerful for me. And I can use that as a touchstone, as a tether, so that when I experience ruminative thoughts, I can hum that piece of music to myself, and it resets my brain.
Right.
And so people have to find what that thing is for them. Now, what I don't know is whether or not something like that would be emotionally powerful enough to help you with this experience of the coach's wife, because that is very clearly, very profoundly, indelibly printed on your psyche.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Because to me, that's an exercise that interrupts the process. But it doesn't stop it.
Yeah. But for me, so if I'm hearing you, so for, like 92% of all rumination, my use of the Star Wars theme is very powerful and works very well. Okay, and I actually used that as a way of dealing with my tendency to experience road rage when I was younger, and it was really, really very helpful. For something like what you're experiencing, what I would want to do would be to use a different technique called cognitive reset. To change, like you're saying, you always say you want to change responsibility to responsibility. Yeah. And I would want to change your experience of that from she was devastated by your recitation to she was mesmerized.
Okay. I think what you're describing is a very common technique that's used in therapy for all kinds of things. Addiction issues, for instance, if you are craving a drink and you teach yourself an alternative proactive behavior, I'll do 25 push-ups instead of having a drink.
Sure.
If you have learned that you can recite the preamble of the Constitution, then you choose to recite it rather than sit there and have Dolly Parton sing in your head for the 10,000th straight time. So what you're talking about is learning to have cards in the deck to play instead of the rumination card. And what I'm curious about is there a difference in our ability to do that based on our intellect? Do smarter people do that more readily, or do less smart people do that more readily?
For me, I wouldn't see how that would be a factor in
its effectiveness,
in its effectiveness, or the ability to do it, right? So the things that a person might think of might be different. Just like I don't think that it is good for people to hear me talk about Star Wars and to say, "Oh, I'm going to use that as my tool."
Yeah.
Because you have to find what is important for you. It's just like when I talk to people about, tell me 3 positive things about you. And they say, I can't tell you 3 positive things about me. And I say, okay, well, between today and the next time we see each other, I would like for you to meditate on that. And I would like you to come back and give me as many positive things as you can. But I don't want you to ask anybody else. Because if you ask somebody else, it's not coming from you. It's not true.
So, what I'm thinking is that I had a friend that was a music therapist, and she used to recommend that people make playlists for different moods that they found themselves in, or for different tasks that they had to do, like a workout tape, an exercise tape, but also a sadness tape, a grief tape. What kind of music then enhanced their ability to experience whatever it was, or would interrupt their necessity for experiencing it. It would be, say, if you had a sad or grief-based experience that you want to get out of, could you play upbeat, like Rocky running up the steps of Philadelphia, that helped you transition and didn't require you to have to do more than just play the tape? Do you find that to be?
I think, yeah. I mean, it's the same thing. It's a distraction. Now, you can even up that and use science. They actually will now take imprints of your brainwave patterns in different states and actually translate that into a musical score. So you can actually commission someone. No, I'm not joking.
No, I know you're not joking. I thought you were going to tell me about biofeedback. So they sit and have you look at the screen of your brain and try to have your brain.
Well, you can also do that. Yeah. That's the whole concept of brainwave. Yeah. But you can do that where you actually send in, and they I don't know how they get the imprint of your EEG. I'm assuming that you have to go somewhere and have that taped, but then they can show you different pictures to elicit different responses and take the brainwave patterns and then create musical scores based on the way that your brain is reacting, and you can listen to that with headphones, and people say that can change their lives.
That's the theory behind trying to teach people not to be homosexuals. Show them pictures of things that arouse them and then give them a pain stimulus when they're aroused.
I think that's the opposite, but
I think it's the same.
It's the same principle. Yeah, same principle. Yeah.
I mean, it may not be something you'd recommend or even believe in, but if you're trying to avoid that rumination.
I mean, we're talking about classical conditioning. Yeah. And then yes, that's another form of classical conditioning. Yes. Yeah. So the idea here would be, number one, to use distraction techniques to get the simple ruminations out of your brain when you become aware that they are invasive, then number two, to use cognitive restructuring to the extent that you can for things that might be more deeply ingrained. And then there's going to be some things that people may find it really, really difficult to get rid of. And then we have to work on trying to let those things go. Ask yourself, how long do you want to live with this?
Let's take a break for a moment while I ruminate about that.
Here at Psych with Mike, we are committed to delivering to you the best psychology information that we possibly can. And we want to make sure that that's always free. So we need everybody to go to the link that is in the show notes on the podcast page or in the show notes on the YouTube page and fill out a really quick, less than 10-second survey. That's going to help us to be able to attract advertisers to the show. That's going to let us take the show to the next level while still delivering the show in a free format. So please help us out. Share that information with everybody in your family, everybody that you know. The more responses that we get, the faster that we can get monetized, the faster that we can attract high-quality advertisers. We are committed to screening every advertiser that comes onto the show. So we're not going to be selling you things that we don't agree with or that we don't think are appropriate for the content of the show. But we do want to be able to upgrade the technical quality and the overall look of the show. So help us out. Go right now, click that link, fill out the survey, tell everybody you know to go and fill out the survey, and we really appreciate it. Thanks, and if it's Friday, it's Psych with Mike. All right, we're back. Thank you for that. That was very well done.
I'm a professional.
You are a professional. So some things probably aren't going to lend themselves to either distraction or cognitive restructuring. And those things are maybe the hardest thing, maybe some of the hardest things, like this experience that you have of the coach's wife. And, you know, my question in therapy is, how long do you want this to be something that you carry? Do you want to carry that until the end of your days? If the answer to that is no, then why do you think you're still carrying it today?
I think for me, it's kind of like the mark of Cain. There are pieces of me that I find unacceptable to my own standards, and it's a vivid example of one of those pieces. And until I get to a place where I'm not interfered with by those pieces,
right,
then they continue to knock on the door.
And that's yes. So until you are perfect, you can't let those things go.
I'm glad you said it, because if I said it, would sound really hollow and empty.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's exactly how I feel, is that, you know, I'm too have, you know, these things that I've done and that I carry around, and I struggle with this idea of, I want to let these things go.
Yeah.
You know, in my belief, my Christian belief, you know, I believe that if I've been forgiven, then why am I beating myself up about this if I truly honestly believe that I've been forgiven? And that's a really hard thing to do, and that's where I always butt up against is, well, but I should be able to be better. But if I've learned from those experiences,
Well, remember, Nancy Reagan said, "Just say no."
just say no.
Yeah. Just don't do it.
Well, but even if
But it's intrusive.
but I genuinely believe that the things that I have done that I feel shame for, I have learned from, and every one of those things has changed me and made me if not a better person, at least a more self-aware person. And I try today to be better than that and not repeat. Now, if I never thought about it and I kept repeating those same mistakes over and over again, then that would be a horse of a different color. But if you learn from it and you have tried to change the person that you are and not make those mistakes over again, what is the value of holding on to the memory of those disappointments?
So for me, in this particular example, what I learned was to be more other aware and less self-aware.
And you've done that.
I think so.
So then what's the point of holding on to the message? Because you're afraid you'll regress if you don't. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And why? Why would you think that? There's no logical reason why you would.
There's a pattern in my life of self-absorption. However much I try not to have it, I prefer to be other aware. But my therapist keeps telling me, well, you got to be self-aware too. So it's
and holding on to that disappointing behavior, I don't believe is making you more other person aware. I believe that you think that it is, but I don't believe that it is actually doing that. I think it's just a way of you wearing a hair shirt.
I think you're probably right.
Yeah. And that's where, and because I myself have struggled with that, and I'm like, when are you going to take the hair shirt off?
It's a mea culpa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the truth is that no one can choose when another person is going to feel like their penance has been served. The individual has to decide that for themselves.
Yeah, I'm finished with this.
But if in therapy we can raise, it's just like, when they talk about in addictions, raising someone's bottom so that they can make a decision to change before the consequences are more dire.
Yeah, exactly.
And so that's what I think of in therapy, is I'm trying to help this individual become...
So you recognize the pattern, and the pattern is triggered by something. So what's triggering this? So why are you going to this place of hair shirt, of self-punishment?
Right.
Is it because you want to do something that's is unacceptable, or is it because you've done something and this is an old shirt comfortable to put on as a way to punish yourself, or do you need to look at that and do something different?
Well, and also, have you just become so used to wearing the hair shirt that it feels odd not have it on? Right. And I think that is a lot of what we see in therapy, is that people have just become so
habituated. Yes, absolutely. I agree.
And that when we can say, do you still want to do this? People say, well, of course not. Well, then let's talk about how you can stop.
Yeah.
And it's the first time in their
I'm okay,
experience.
you're okay.
Yeah.
You're okay, I'm not okay. Well, why can't you be okay? Well, because I'm not okay. Yeah.
Right, there's no explanation.
Yeah.
And then you say, okay, well, if there's no evidence, if there's no rational reason why you can't be okay, could you at least tolerate for one moment thinking about maybe you could be okay? And sometimes people just are...
Or maybe you are
flabbergasted,
okay
right?
Already.
Yeah. And I think that's a point where real change starts to happen.
Amen.
Yeah. So hopefully this was good for everybody. And as always, if you want to get a hold of us, you can reach us through psychwithmike.com. The music that appears in Psych with Mike is written and performed by Mr. Benjamin DeClue. And if it's Friday, it's Psych with Mike.